In this video, we're going to see some examples of using array lists. So an array list is a collection that's provided by Java, and array lists let us store items in the array list, use some list methods, and as the name kind of gives away, the array list is implemented using an array underneath the scenes. However, we don't need to worry about that. We're going to treat it just as any other list. In fact, so much so that when I create a array list, I'm going to use a list reference variable. And you see that I have some errors there. That's because I need to import list and I need to import array list. So there's an array list of integers. Here's an array list of strings. And here is a matrix, which is a list of array lists. So it's a two-dimensional object. And I need to fix that. I think other than that, looks like we have a good start. So to add an element to an array list, I'm going to use the add method. And I'll add II to numbers. And that's in a loop. I can also, if I want, add some other numbers, 10, 20, and 4. I'll add some names to the names array list. And I can print these out using their toString. So we'll do numbers, names, and then I'll print the matrix out, even though we actually haven't filled it in yet. We'll fill that in next. So here you can see that I have these lists. One thing that's nice about array list versus just arrays is that toString is already implemented for you, so that makes things nice. So now let's talk about how to fill in the matrix, because that's an array list of array lists. So there's a couple different ways we can do this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two rows. So row 1, I'm going to create that using the add method, which we've seen before. So I'll add 1 and 2 there. Now for the next row, I'm going to use a list to initialize the row. So in this constructor, I'm going to pass a list, and there's an asList function in the arrays class. So I can give it some numbers. It'll create a list of these, and then I can pass that in to initialize my array list. So now I'm going to fill the matrix. I'm going to add row 1, and I'm going to add row 2. And I'm going to take out the spaces here. Now, one thing you may want to do just for practice, think about if you wrote your own matrix class, how you could abstract away some of these details. Obviously, you would want to have to do this each time. And so it's a good exercise to try that if you want some extra practice with this. So now let's run this, and you can see my first row and my second row were there. So now how can I access what's in these array lists? Well, first, I can use an iterator. So let me have an extra line there, and then, okay, that looks good. So now I'm going to get an integer iterator, and notice ArrayList has an iterator method that returns an iterator. I need to spell integer right, and I think I need to import iterator. Okay, so that's looking good now. So now I can say while nums itr has next, I'm going to print, I'm going to do next, add a space between those, and there we go. Let's run this, and you can see there's numbers using an iterator. I can also use a for each loop, which I think you'll agree is going to be a lot cleaner. So I'll say for, actually, let's do names here. Again, it doesn't really matter. I could do either method for either array list. So when I run this, you can see I get the names as well. You'll notice the syntax here, though, is a lot cleaner. This versus this. And the other thing is that inside of here, I do get a reference to each of those strings. So I need to put a print statement here just to get an extra line. So there's also a get method we can use. So I can say numbers get 0. I could also say the last one is numbers size -1. So let's make sure that works. Yep, so you can see first and last, 0 and 4. I can do this something similar for names. I need a plus there. And remember, this is the same as array indexing, so the third element is index 2. So if I run this, you can see that it prints the first and third element in that list. So a couple other methods to go over here, if I can get this cleaned up, okay? So I'm going to say that I have names.size and numbers size numbers, and matrix size rows in the matrix. Let me put a space here. I think the rest of that looks good. So that's the size method. So you can see that it prints those out. One other thing that you can check on, I can say that 20 is stored in index, and then I can say numbers index of 20, and then I can say Voltron is stored in index Voltron. And so when I run that, you can see that it tells me what index those are stored in, and you can double check that that's true. So that's a quick introduction to ArrayLists. These are very helpful, and we'll actually be talking about how to implement an ArrayList next module. But for the assignments for this module, you can go ahead and use the java.util ArrayList.